Good afternoon. Welcome to the first meeting of the Assembly Committee on Revenue for the 82nd session of the Nevada Legislature. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Present.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Present.
Assemblywoman Gallant.
Present.
Assemblyman Gray.
Present.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Mosca.
Here.
Assemblyman Wynn.
Here.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblyman Orentlicker.
Here.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Present.
Chair Backus.
There are 12 members present, so we have quorum. I would like to welcome our audience members here in Carson City, as well as those watching or listening over the internet. If you have not done so already, please mute all of your electronic devices. Persons wishing to testify today, please sign in at the table by the door. Before beginning to testify, please present a business card to the committee secretary and state your name clearly for the record. Also, I guess for the future, if you have any handouts, if you can bring 16 copies to the committee, in addition to providing your handout in electronic format to the committee secretary, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, as a reminder for those who will be testifying before this committee this session, NRS 218E.085 states that any person who knowingly misrepresents any fact when testifying before a legislative committee is guilty of a misdemeanor. The 2023 session will be a busy one for us. Today, though, we are going to take it a little easy. We have a few housekeeping matters, and then our fiscal staff will have a few presentations. First, though, I would like to start with introductions. I'm Assemblywoman Shay Backus, representing Assembly District 37 in Clark County. This is my second legislative session and also my second session serving as a member of Revenue. I am honored to have been chosen to serve as chair this session. As you all know, Nevada has a citizen legislature. The 63 members of the Senate and Assembly are not full-time politicians, but ordinarily citizens from 63 different walks of life. We take time off from our usual employment as attorneys, teachers, business owners, retirees, nonprofit executives, or utility manager for a few months every other year to represent our fellow citizens. We all come from different backgrounds and have different areas of expertise. When the legislature passes a bill, it affects every citizen in this state, both now and in the often unpredictable future. I take this responsibility very seriously. I do not expect my committee members to have great expertise or in-depth knowledge of the many issues we will hear in this committee. I expect them to read the bills and ask questions of the professionals in the field who are being testifying before us over the next few months. Before we get into the committee member introductions, I have a little welcome gift for you guys. I think everyone has seen it already. It's just a small token of my appreciation and probably much more needs this session going forward since we're a 4:00 p.m. committee. So in front of you, you have a bag of coffee. I'm really proud of this. This is a small business up in the Reno area. It is the first Native-owned coffee shop in our state. It's an individual who grew up on the Hungry Valley part, like the living area of the Reno Sparks Indian Reservation. So that is for you all, and we all learned, I think it's Vice Chair Considine has a grinder that she'll bring in so that we can grind it because they're whole beans. And then second, I'm a little crafty, and I realize we're gonna be looking at a lot of spreadsheets and numbers that sometimes can be often small. My eyesight is in much needed of a magnifying glass because sometimes I forget my readers. And so there's a little magnifying glass, and it also works as a straight rule to kind of follow the numbers across if we don't have a grid. So those are for you guys. Now I would like to recognize the members to make your own introduction. Hopefully we can keep it to 2 minutes or less, including the district you represented and your years of experience on this committee. So we'll go ahead and start with our Vice Chair, Assemblywoman Venetia Considine.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really looking forward to this session. I'm Assemblywoman Venetia Considine. I represent District 18, which is in southeast Las Vegas with a little bit of Henderson. We have the Clark County wetlands in my district, which I'm very proud of. This is my second session that I was just reelected. I served on revenue last session, and I'm so happy to be back serving on revenue this session. And I have a grinder for coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Leslie Cohen, representing Assembly District 29, right next to Assemblywoman Considine in mostly Henderson. I have served on revenue, I think, for 4 sessions, and I've been honored to be the chair and vice chair of revenue as well. So I'm excited to be back.
Assemblyman Gregory Hafen II, District 36, Pahrump, West Summerlin, circle around Vegas, etc. Third session in taxation. Thank you.
Bad start. Thank you, Chair. I'm P.K. O'Neill, District 40, which consists of all of Carson City, all of Story County, and the eastern side of Washoe County up to City of Sparks and just along the edge of the Reno city limits. I've been on revenue before, and I've got to say, for the freshmen, I dreaded coming to revenue last session, and it was probably one of the more enjoyable committees that I think we had the entire session, and it wasn't just because of the leadership. It really is to me, a very interesting committee to be on, and I've been on several other committees. Revenue is very enjoyable. So I wish you all the best. Have no fears. It'll be fun. Thank you, Chair.
And let's start with Assemblywoman Gallant.
Good afternoon. My name's Danielle Gallant. I represent District 23, which everybody thinks is just Boulder City, but it also includes parts of Henderson, very southern part of Henderson, and then all the way down to Laughlin. So we have a lot of rural areas in this district, some of my favorite. This will be my first year serving. I'm a small business owner, so and I deal with a lot of accounting issues in my business, so I'm looking forward to serving on revenue and really learning more about how our state works and with all of you. So thank you.
David Orentlicker, Assembly District 20 on the southeast side of Las Vegas, just a couple of miles east of the airport. And this is my second term here, 5th term overall, because I had 3 terms in Indiana about 15 years ago, and second time around in revenue. So good to be back.
Good afternoon. My name is Yui Nguyen. I represent Assembly District 8 in Southwest Las Vegas, one of the most diverse districts in Nevada. I just want to make a quick shout out to my attaché who reminded me that I need to continue teaching the entire state of Nevada how to pronounce my first name. So just being consistent throughout the entire committee introduction. Think of me when you do a U-turn. So Yui for the first name. I know we address each other by title here, Madam Chair, but I just want to ensure that folks know about how to say my first name in case they had to say the entire thing. Assemblyman Yui Nguyen. You say it fast, it's kind of sound like you win. And I've been on this committee now for 13 minutes and hopefully get to learn a lot. So excited to learn about revenue and what we can do for Nevada as a small business owner and as an employer myself. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Erica Mosca, representing Assembly District 14 in East Las Vegas. I'm very excited to be on this committee as a nonprofit founder who loves budgets, and it is my freshman year, so I'm excited. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Assemblywoman Chandra Summers Armstrong, representing Assembly District 6 in Las Vegas. It encompasses the entire historic West Las Vegas area, parts of near North Las Vegas, and a little bit to the west to Decatur and Rancho. This is my second session, and this is a new experience for me to be strictly in revenue. When I worked at the Regional Transportation Commission before retirement, my last 6 years, I had to learn a lot more about budgets than I really wanted to, and found that it was really an enjoyable experience and the foundation of how organizations run. And I think that that's important for all of us to know, but I didn't have one of these. So now, I won't have to get a new eyeglass prescription, hopefully, when we get out of here in June. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, 4 o'clock. So thank you for having me, and I'm excited about this committee.
Thank you, Chair, for the gifts. My name is Natha Anderson, and I represent Assembly District 30, which I refer to as Key Meadows, because it's the majority of it is Sparks, just a little bit of the Reno area as well. This is my second time on revenue, and very similar to my peer from Carson City and the little bit of Sparks that he also represents. I thought, okay, when I got placed on this last session, and then I loved it. It was pretty fun. So found out that revenue is more than just playing Monopoly against your sister and accidentally giving yourself an extra $100, that there's always other things with revenue. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to another great session. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Ken Gray, Assembly District 39, which encompasses all of Douglas County and Lyon County from the Carson City line all the way out to the Churchill County line. So it's the Central Lyon corridor. I think I can say I'm looking forward to serving on this committee now that I've got 17 minutes on it. I'm beating Yui down there. Came here from Lyon County, 6 years on the Board of County Commissioners out there. And I thought when I got my committee assignment, somebody had made a mistake, but Assemblyman O'Neill assured me there had been no mistake made. He says, I'll enjoy it. So I'm going to hold him to that one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Also, as a vital part of every committee is our staff. I would like to welcome our committee fiscal analyst, Mr. Michael Nakamoto and Susanna Powers, and our committee staff, Nick Christie, who's not present. I don't think he's in our room right now. He's our committee manager. We also have our committee secretary, Gina Hall, as well as Assistant Committee Secretary Cheryl Williams. I would also like them to go around and kind of just give a brief introduction. If we can start with our Deputy Fiscal Analyst, Michael Nakamoto, that'd be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, I am Michael Nakamoto, Chief Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. For reference, we are nonpartisan staff to all 63 legislators. You'll hear this same speech in all of your other committees from the research analysts. Most of the committees are staffed by research division employees, with the exception of the money committees and the revenue committees, which are staffed by folks from the Fiscal Analysis Division. This is my 9th session with LCB. It is my 9th session sitting in this room and staffing this committee. It is my first session not sitting next to the chair. This is a little bit of a strange perspective to be sitting in. I head what is known as the tax team. We do revenue and economic analysis. We're staffed to the Economic Forum. We administer the fiscal note system. We are here to answer all of your questions, either during committee or otherwise. So if you ever have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division. I am staffing this committee this session. I am new to this role. This is my first session. However, I am not new to the state. I have 13 plus years in state service in the executive branch, all as an economist. My first 5 years with Dieter and the next 8 years with the governor's finance office, budget division. My accent is from Finland. I was born and raised in Finland. And I really look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
And if we can turn over to our committee secretary to start us off, and we can also introduce Spencer as well, too, if we'd like.
I'm Gina Hall, and this is my 7th session. All of them have been on revenue or taxation, and I'm looking forward to being with you here this year.
Hi, my name is Spencer Wines. I'm a trainee committee secretary for Commerce and Labor, so you guys won't see me here after this. But this is my first session. I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Williams, and I like to brag that I'm a double native Nevadan. I'm from the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. Those are my people. This is my 9th session. I love working with Gina.
Thank you all. There are two also important people. I saw our committee manager as well walk in, and that is Nick Christie. I don't know if he wants to come up to a microphone, but he's going to be key when you're submitting all of those exhibits and everything. They're going to be going to him so that he can also post up. But I also overlooked our deputy fiscal analyst, who will majority of the time sit with our Senate side of revenue and economic development, and that is Christian Thauer. Some people may recognize him if they were here last session with Health and Human Services. But Christian, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Christian Thauer. I'm a deputy fiscal analyst, and as the chair mentioned, I will this session staff the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development. Thank you.
Thank you all. And like all other committees, we also do have a legal staff representative who will be sitting on our committee, and that is our legal counsel, Brian Fernley. As most of you probably know, he's probably still sending out pre-filed BDRs to all of us. And so I anticipate probably some of the session he won't be in here because of some of his other responsibilities that he has. But he is our assigned legal representative this session. So members should have before them a copy of the committee policies. So we'll quickly do that. That was also posted on Nellis as well. These policies supplement the assembly standing rules that we had voted on yesterday, as well as sections of the Nevada revised statutes dealing with conduct before the legislature, and are not intended to replace committee rules and the assembly standing rules or the NRS. They're purely meant to supplement. I'm hoping, I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at these rules, but does anyone have any questions? Okay. Then I will accept a motion to adopt the committee policies. Thank you, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, and a second from Assemblyman Gray. Thank you so much. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We have a few other housekeeping matters before the committee. One key thing is hopefully we can promptly start on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll try my best to get over here as well. I ask the members, unless excused in advance, to be in attendance of the meetings from the time the meeting begins until the meeting is adjourned. I do understand we also have another committee at this time, so people may at other times be testifying on some of their bills. If you don't mind just letting me know, the key is we just need to sometimes have quorum if we're trying to work session any bills this session. And then also, I just want to emphasize the importance of courtesy in dealing with other members of the committee, staff, and all persons who testify before us. We must never forget that we are here to serve the public. Their testimony deserves our respect. But I also want to note, we all do work off of laptops, so sometimes we may be multitasking. I'm one that likes to take notes, so you'll see me probably up here typing on my laptop. That's very common with a lot of the other committee members, and we're not meaning to be disrespectful for those that may be testifying before us. And then I have asked Ms. Powers to provide a refresher to the members on the session deadlines and a brief summary of the topics and activity of the committee. So I will turn this over to Ms. Powers.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Susanna Powers. I will be covering the committee brief document. It is electronically available on Nevada Electronic Legislative Information System, known as NELIS. I will only spend a few minutes going over what is in a committee brief. The brief includes an overview of the committee, information on staff, as well as the recap of what the committee did last session. Starting on page 3 of the document, under recap of committee work during the 2021 legislative session, you will see that there were a total of 37 measures referred to this committee. Of those 37 measures, 24 were reported out of the committee. And of those 24, 19 were reported to the governor or filed with the Secretary of State. Assembly Bill 368 was vetoed by Governor Sisolak on June 10, 2021. Midway on page 3 of the document is an overview of tax legislation from the 2021 session, most of which came through this committee, some of which did not. I do not intend to go through them. They are there for your information. Please reach out to us if you have any questions about the legislative overview in this brief. Beginning on page 19 of the brief is the jurisdiction of the committee. Unlike the Senate, the Assembly does not publish a specific jurisdiction based on chapters of Nevada Revised Statutes, known as NRS. Historically, bills in Title 32 of NRS come to this committee. This page shows a list of the 33 chapters of NRS in Title 32. We have also been getting a lot of bills relating to economic development that are outside of Title 32. Now on page 20 of the document are committee deadlines. These committee deadlines are based on the 120-day calendar. Also noted on page 20 is a list of the pre-filed measures that have been referred to this committee. This is as of February 5th, 2023. There are a total of 8 so far. On pages 21 through 23 of the brief is a list of potential PDRs that may have an effect on revenue, economic development, and/or tax policy. On page 25 of the brief is a list of the members of this committee, the members of the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, as well as the staff contacts for both committees. On page 26 of the brief is a directory of other key contacts for some of the departments and other interest groups who may come before this committee. This completes the set of information for the committee brief. Are there any questions from the members of the committee?
Thank you, Ms. Powers. But we're staying on you. Next, we will hear a presentation on the Revenue Reference Manual that is produced before each session by our Fiscal Analysis Division. And so I will turn the microphone again over to Ms. Powers. We have a hard copy that has a green cover, but if anyone's interested, it is also available online.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Susanna Powers. A Revenue Reference Manual is electronically available on NELIS. All committee members have received a hard copy of it with a green cover. My presentation today is very brief and high level. The agencies that are responsible for administering several of the taxes included in the Revenue Reference Manual will be given presentations in this committee. Thus, this committee will have meetings to receive more detailed information. The manual starts with a table of contents. The Revenue Reference Manual is a document that is updated by the Fiscal Analysis Division in advance of every session. The table of contents lists the different sections in this document, starting with the appropriations and revenue charts, then getting into summaries of the taxes. Legal references and notes about key pieces of legislation that would have affected all included items in this manual are provided. The bulk of this document is taken up by tax legislation history, starting with the 1979 session, going all the way through to the 2021 session. On page 3, there is a pie chart that displays the state general fund appropriations approved by the legislature during the 2021 session, the current fiscal year 21 through 23 biennium. Then on page 4, there is a pie chart summarizing the Economic Forum's most recent forecast, dated December 5th, 2022, for fiscal years 2023, 2024, and 2025. Below the pie chart is a table that summarizes the latest Economic Forum forecast by revenue source for the upcoming biennium. The 2023-25 biennial forecast for the total general fund revenue after tax credits is $11.4 billion. This figure includes fiscal years 2024 and 2025. The three biggest revenue sources in this table are state 2% sales tax, gaming percentage fee, and modified business taxes. This table is then followed by the detailed Economic Forum forecast table. So if you flip through those pages, we're going to start with the tax revenue summary section, which would be starting on page 17. So we will start with sales and use tax. That is actually 2 pages after that, so on page 19. Sales and use tax is administered by the Department of Taxation. They are scheduled to give a presentation in our Thursday, February 9th meeting. This tax is levied on taxable sale and taxable use of tangible personal property. The statewide sales and use tax rate in Nevada is 6.85%. There are 4 components for that statewide tax rate. Pages 19 and 20 cover the first component of the sales and use tax. That is the 2% rate that is dedicated to the state general fund. Next, on page 21 is the second component of the sales and use tax, the basic city-county relief tax, which is a rate of 0.5%. This is dedicated to local governments and distributed to them through what is known as the consolidated tax distribution, known as C-tax. Please turn to page 22. The supplemental city-county relief tax is the third component of the sales tax. The rate is 1.75%, and it is distributed through C-tax and has different rules that apply. The procedure is outlined on this page. Please turn to page 23. The fourth component is the local school support tax, which is imposed at a rate of 2.6%. This is dedicated to K-12 education in the state education fund. In summary, the 4 components outlined make up the total statewide rate of 6.85%, but some county sales tax rates can be higher. For example, the sales and use tax rate in Washoe or Clark counties is considerably higher than the statewide tax rate. This is because counties under legislative authority are able to levy additional optional sales taxes for various purposes. References to these county optional sales taxes start on page 25. Then page 27 has detailed information about how much additional tax there is by county, what was collected in fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22, and for what purpose. Finally, page 28 has a map received from the Department of Taxation that shows what the combined sales tax rate in each county in the state currently is. The gaming taxes section begins on page 29. Gaming taxes are administered by the Gaming Control Board. They are scheduled to give our committee a presentation on Tuesday, February 14th. The largest type of gaming tax is the gaming percentage fee, listed on page 31. This tax is paid on taxable gross gaming revenue by non-restricted licensees in the state. Non-restricted licensees are gaming establishments with 16 or more slot machines, and they also have other games, including a race and sports book. The fee is paid on a progressive schedule outlined on page 31. Other notable gaming taxes are listed on pages 32 through 37. The property tax section starts on page 41. Property taxes are primarily a revenue source for local governments. In general, land is appraised at its market value, while improvements are appraised at replacement cost less depreciation of 1.5% per year up to 50 years. The assessed value is 35% of the appraised taxable value. The property tax rate varies by county, and there are constitutional and statutory limitations. Property owners are eligible for a partial abatement of property taxes assessed upon real and personal property in Nevada. The tax bill cannot increase by more than 3% over the prior year's bill for certain single-family owner-occupied primary residences, as well as certain residential rentals that meet the HUD, the Federal Housing and Urban Development Rent Guidelines. A partial cap of up to 8% applies to all other types of properties. That cap is determined with a two-part formula outlined on page 42. New construction or properties with zoning changes will not qualify for any cap until the second year. In summary, the property tax section has information about average statewide property taxes, abatements applied to properties in the state, and information on how much revenue was collected for local government, school districts, and the State Consolidated Bond Interest and Redemption Fund. Turn to page 44 for net proceeds of minerals tax. This is an annual tax and paid by mining operations in the state in lieu of property taxes. Net proceeds are calculated by deducting allowable production-related expenses from the gross yield. The tax rate depends on the ratio of the net proceeds to the gross proceeds. The maximum tax rate is 5%, applied to net proceeds in excess of $4 million annually and to all royalties. The portion of the tax that is currently deposited in the state general fund is to be deposited in the state education fund beginning fiscal year 2024. We are now in the excise tax section, and it starts on page 47. We will start with the liquor tax on page 49. Liquor is taxed differently depending on the alcohol content by volume, as well as the type of alcohol. Those rates are listed on page 49. The state general fund receives all revenues after collection allowance, except for tax received from liquor containing over 22% alcohol. 65 cents per gallon of the tax on liquor containing over 22% of alcohol is peeled off. The liquor program account in the state general fund receives 15 cents per gallon from that tax. The remaining 50 cents per gallon from the tax is deposited in a local government tax distribution account and redistributed within each county through C-tax distribution. Please turn to the next page for the cigarette tax. The tax on cigarettes is 90 mils per cigarette. 1 mil is 1/10 of a penny, so the tax per cigarette is 9 cents. For a pack of cigarettes, the tax is $1.80. The state general fund receives 85 mils per cigarette. That is $1.70 per pack of 20 cigarettes, less collection allowance. 5 mils per cigarette, which is 10 cents per pack of 20 cigarettes, is deposited in the local government tax distribution account and redistributed within the counties through C-tax distribution. Next on page 51 is the other tobacco products tax. Other tobacco products are taxed at 30% of the wholesale price of tobacco products other than cigarettes. This tax also applies to certain alternative nicotine products and vapor products, including e-cigarettes and their components. Cannabis taxes start on page 52. Cannabis tax collection is administered by the Department of Taxation. Regulation of cannabis is done by the Cannabis Compliance Board, known as the CCB. The Cannabis Compliance Board is scheduled to give our committee a presentation on Thursday this week. The 15% wholesale tax was approved by the voters in the 2016 general election. The wholesale tax is deposited in the Cannabis Compliance Board account, and after certain expenses are paid, the leftover is deposited in the state education fund. Turn to next page. The 10% retail tax was approved by the legislature during the 2017 session. In fiscal years 2018 and 2019, the 10% retail tax proceeds went to the account to stabilize the operation of the state government, otherwise known as the rainy day fund. Since fiscal year 2020, the retail tax proceeds have been deposited for the benefit of the K-12 education. The transportation connection excise tax, often referred as the Uber tax, starts on page 56. This tax also applies to taxi cabs and other common carriers and transportation network companies. The tax rate is 3% of the fair price. The State Highway Fund receives the first $5 million that is generated from this tax in an even-numbered year of each biennium. The balance of this revenue goes to the state general fund. The gold and silver tax is a new tax, and please turn to page 57 for that. The 2021 session enacted an annual tax on each business entity engaged in the business of extracting gold and/or silver in a state whose Nevada gross revenue in a taxable year exceeds $20 million, effective July 1st, 2021. The tax is paid on a progressive schedule outlined on page 57. The proceeds from this tax are currently distributed to the general fund and to the state general fund, but beginning fiscal year 2024, this revenue is dedicated to K-12 education in the state education fund. We are now in the fuel and motor vehicle taxes section on page 59. Fuel taxes are administered by the Department of Motor Vehicles. They are scheduled to give a presentation on Thursday, February 16th. Fuel taxes are paid on a wholesale level, and the tax rate varies depending on the type of fuel and what county you are in. The gasoline tax starts on page 61. Gasoline has a 23 cent per gallon state mandated rate, of which 17.65 cents goes to the State Highway Fund and 5.35 cents goes to the county in which the tax is collected. There is also a 1 cent mandatory county tax for road repair and up to 9 cents per gallon by county ordinance for regional transportation projects. Counties with certain population thresholds may, with voter approval, enact ordinance imposing additional county fuel rates within the limits permitted by law. Note that the rate on gasoline is different than the tax on special fuels. Pages 62 through 64 include details about the indexed fuel taxes that are imposed in both Clark and Washoe counties. Beginning on page 65 is a write-up of the taxes on special fuel. Examples of special fuels are diesel, liquid petroleum gas, compressed natural gas, and so on. Special fuel tax is primarily a state tax, although there are indexed rates in Clark and Washoe counties. There are 8 rural counties that also impose a 5-cent tax on diesel fuel. The jet fuel tax and petroleum products cleanup fee are noted on page 69 and 70, respectively. Now we turn to page 71. The governmental services tax, also known as GST, is a tax that is paid to the Department of Motor Vehicles when you register your vehicle based on the value of that vehicle. The valuation of vehicles for purposes of the tax is 35% of the manufacturer's suggested retail price, excluding options, at the time the make and model for that year was first offered for sale in Nevada. The taxable value is multiplied by a depreciation factor outlined on page 71. The basic GST state rate is 4%. The supplemental GST rate of 1% is imposed only in Clark and Churchill counties. GST rate is subject to constitutional limit of $5 per $100 of assessed value. Page 73 details where the proceeds go from this tax. The largest share of the governmental services tax goes to local governments and school districts. Page 74 includes information about Senate Bill 429 of the 2009 session that increased the depreciation factor for all ages and categories of vehicles except for new vehicles by 10%, effective September 1st, 2009. Under current law, since fiscal year 2022, 75% of the proceeds generated by the additional 10% are deposited in the State Highway Fund, and 25% of the proceeds are deposited in the State General Fund. If you look at the actual collections for fiscal year 2022 on page 73, you can see that the state portion is not a very significant amount of GST. Now we are going to get to the other taxes section, which starts on page 75. The insurance premium tax is on page 77. The insurance premium tax is a 3.5% tax on net insurance premiums written in Nevada. For risk retention groups, the rate is 2% of net premiums. If you turn to next page, you will find captive insurance premium tax. This tax rate varies depending on the amount of annual net premiums. The modified business tax, also known as MBT, starts on page 79. In general, modified business tax is a tax on taxable wages paid by certain businesses that are required to pay unemployment insurance contributions in this state. The structure and the tax rate depends on the type of business. We have 3 business types for the purpose of this tax: financial institutions, mining companies, and general businesses. Employers are allowed to deduct health insurance costs paid on behalf of their employees. MPT financial institution information is on page 79. In fiscal year 2023, the tax is imposed at the rate of 1.853% on all taxable wages. Taxable wages are described as gross wages minus eligible health insurance deductions. MPT for mining companies information is on page 81. The tax is imposed also at the rate of 1.853% on all taxable wages. MPT General Business Information starts on page 83. The tax is imposed at the rate of 1.378% on all taxable wages exceeding $50,000 per calendar quarter. Taxable wages below $50,000 per calendar quarter are exempt. Beginning of fiscal year 2024, which starts on July 1st, 2023, the tax rate for all three different types of MPT are going to be reduced pursuant to NRS 360.203. This NRS section provides for a required tax reduction mechanism for MPT tax rates when actual collections for MPT, along with the branch bank excise tax and the commerce tax, are more than 4% above the Economic Forum's forecast for each even-numbered fiscal year as determined biannually by the Department of Taxation. The last determination took place in September of last year, and it resulted in a reduction of MPT tax rates. Effective fiscal year 2024, the MPT tax rate for financial institutions and mining companies will be reduced from the current 1.853% to 1.554% on all taxable wages. For general businesses, the tax rate is reduced from the current 1.378% to 1.17% on all taxable wages in excess of $50,000 per calendar quarter. Under current law, the rate reduction mechanism now has reached the minimum by it may be reduced pursuant to NRS 360.203, and thus no further reductions may occur based on current law. Next is the branch bank excise tax on page 87. This tax is $1,750 per quarter on each branch maintained by a bank. The first branch in each county is exempt from this tax. The business license fee that is primarily collected by the Office of the Secretary of State is on page 88. The fee is $500 per year for corporations and $200 per year for all other business entities. The short-term car rental fee is on page 89. The state collects a 10% fee of the total amount for which the passenger car is leased, excluding any taxes or other fees imposed by a governmental entity. The additional 2% imposed in Washoe and Clark counties must be used for certain purposes. Senate Bill 389 of the 2021 session provided that the passenger cars that are shared through the peer-to-peer programs, such as Turo, are subject to a short-term car lease fee. The real property transfer tax is next, and it starts on page 91. The real property transfer tax is levied on the value of real property transferred from one person to another. The rate varies by county. The state general fund receives $1.30 on each $500 of value less a collection allowance retained by each county. The proceeds from the real property transfer tax go to several sources listed on page 91 under the subheading Distribution. The live entertainment tax starts on page 92. The tax for live entertainment provided by gaming establishments is administered by the Gaming Control Board. The tax for live entertainment provided by non-gaming establishment is administered by the Department of Taxation. The tax rate is 9% on the admission price. The first $150,000 of this revenue collected by the Department of Taxation in each fiscal year is transferred to the Nevada Arts Council. We are going to skip the estate tax on page 94. It has not been collected in a long time, but is still part of the Nevada Constitution, so we leave it in there. We will be moving on to the room taxes on page 95. Room taxes are imposed on the gross receipts from the rental of transient lodging. We have a state-mandated rate of 2% of the gross receipts in counties with a population in excess of 700,000 and 1% in all other counties. An additional rate of up to 3% is collected in counties whose population is 300,000 or more. That is Clark and Washoe counties. Counties and cities impose additional room taxes at various rates and for various purposes. The commerce tax starts on page 97. Commerce tax is paid by businesses who have more than $4 million in Nevada gross revenue per fiscal year. In the State of the State speech, Governor Lombardo proposed raising the commerce tax exemption from $4 million to $6 million. The commerce tax rate depends on the type of industry the business is primarily engaged in. Page 99 lists the tax rates by industry type. The North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS, category code for a business is used to determine its commerce tax business category and tax rate. Pages 101 through 236 cover the tax legislation history. This starts with the 1979 session and ends with the 2021 session. Beginning on page 237 is a list of publications from the Department of Taxation that are available on their website. We want to thank the Department of Taxation for the work they did to update this section. We are now on page 247. Exemptions, abatements, deferrals, and credit section starts on that page 247. In this section, you will find information about sales tax exemptions, abatements, and deferrals, property tax abatements and exemptions, exemptions for governmental services tax, real property transfer tax, live entertainment tax, and commerce tax. Information about various tax credit programs start on page 303. The set of tax credit programs listed in that tax credit section may be redeemed against certain general fund tax revenues. Many of the abatements and transferable tax credit programs are related to economic development in this state. We will get more detailed information about them when the Governor's Office of Economic Development, known as GOED, will give a presentation on Thursday, February 16th. Local government finance issues begin on page 323. These issues are related to limitations on property tax rates, assessment standards, and fee limitations. Lastly, information about fiscal notes begins on page 335. A fiscal note details the fiscal effect of certain bills and resolutions and becomes a part of the bill or resolution. The statutory provisions regarding fiscal notes for bills and joint resolutions are found in NRS 218D.400 through 218D.495. This does conclude my presentation. Now, are there any questions from the members of the committee?
Thank you so much, Ms. Powers. And as I will echo what Assemblyman Neal said, is nice work. So that was a lot. This resource is amazing. You always do an amazing job on the revenue reference manual. So thank you to our Fiscal Analysis Division for putting this together. I know my first year, it really helped just kind of explain our taxes in Nevada that seem to be somewhat complicated. Next, we will hear a presentation on the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Revenue Bulletin. I will turn this over to Mr. Nakamoto for that presentation. And then, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. The bulletin is not 337 pages long, so it will not take that long to go through. So, for reference, Assembly Bill 443 of the 2021 session made changes to the interim structure for the Legislative Council Bureau and for the legislature. And specifically what it did is it provided for joint interim standing committees that we refer to as JISCs, because I don't like saying joint interim standing committee over and over again. There were 9 different JISCs that were created, and the 9th one was the JISC for revenue. The bill, we summarized the relevant provisions of NRS which were created from AB 443 in the bulletin. But basically, the majority and minority leaders from each house of the legislature were allowed to appoint members and alternates, which are listed just inside the front cover. Four of the 5 members of the committee, including the Vice Chair, Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblyman Hafen, are currently on this committee. Assemblywoman Kasama was also part of the JISC. And then Assemblyman Orentlicker and Assemblyman O'Neill, as well as the Speaker, were alternates. And that was the selection made by the majority and minority assembly side. So just to go through this briefly, again, page 1 has just the overview of the sections of the NRS that are relevant to the creation of the JISCs. Page 5 has a summary of the meetings that were held. There were 7 meetings that were held of the JISCs. Between January 26th and August 29th of 2022. They included overviews of various taxes. Specifically on the bottom of page 5, the February 23rd meeting had overviews on the sales and use tax as well as on the streamlined sales and use tax agreement, which is an issue that will come before this committee this session. Turning to page 6, you'll see presentations by the Cannabis Compliance Board and the Department of Taxation relating to cannabis that were held on March 23rd. Personally, I thought April 20th might have been a better date for that. But on that date, we decided to hear about the commerce tax and some of the other collections. Then there were some hearings on cryptocurrency as well as property taxes on July 7th. And then finally, on August 29th, there was a presentation on the other tobacco products tax, as well as the work session, which had 2 recommendations brought before the committee, which are summarized on page 9. Those included changes to the other tobacco products tax as well as the property tax. Those particular BDRs have been pre-filed and they have been introduced as Senate bills. So if they are going to receive consideration at some point, those bills are already available for the members to review if they so choose. With that, Madam Chair, that is all I really had to go through with this document. I would be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Before we get to any other remarks, I wanted to give a shout out and welcome both my mom and stepdad, Sandy and Jerry Allred, as well as my husband. The Allreds are both actually constituents of our member, Assemblyman Orlichter. So kind of fun to have them here today while they're still visiting. But are there any other remarks? And I'm probably leaning on Mr. Nakamoto to talk to us about our binders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. In the days and perhaps the week before session, there were emails that came from our office relating to the desire for the members to have electronic copies or paper copies. Those of you who requested paper copies have a binder sitting on your desk that looks a little like this. We put it out today. You'll notice it's empty. It is going to stay empty until we start hearing bills. Documents that the Fiscal Analysis Division puts together. We do explanations of bills, work session documents, and so on. Those are placed as paper copies in your binder. We would ask that you leave it at your space or at your spot on the desk when you're done. And at the end of session, you can take it with you. We do also provide these documents to you in electronic form and they'll be in Nellis, and there's an email that is sent out from Ms. Powers the day before each meeting to yourselves as well as your attachés. They can print out the documents for you if you'd like, but we make them available here in this binder in paper form as well. And then when the session's done, you can take the binder with you or do with it whatever you choose. That is all I really had to cover with this. Again, we would ask that you leave the binder for today, and then as we're hearing bills, we'll bring it out and it'll have the documents that you need in it. But I will be glad to answer any questions relating to the binders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nakamoto. Anyone have any other remarks before we move to public comment? Okay. I would like to open the meeting for public comment. Is there anyone in Carson City who would like to provide public comment? And then looking to Las Vegas, it doesn't look like there's probably anyone in that room to provide public comment, but if there is someone behind that nice pole, please come forward at this time. I don't see anyone. And then last but not least, BPS, is there anyone on the phone who would like to provide public comment?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but we have no callers.
Perfect. Do we have any comments from the members before we adjourn? Adjourn. And then our next meeting will actually be Thursday afternoon in room 3142. We won't be meeting up here in 4100, rather downstairs. We'll send an email out as a reminder that for Thursday and the following Tuesday, we will be meeting in room 3142. But this next Thursday, we will be hearing presentations from the Department of Taxation and the Cannabis Compliance Board. That concludes our meeting for today, so we are adjourned.